Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Covington City Council joint study session with our Parks and Recreation Commission. In compliance with state law, City Council special and regular meetings are being held in a hybrid format with in-person, telephonic, and virtual options for public viewing and participation. With that, we'll do roll and we'll go around the room, but I'm going to start with Debbie online.
Good evening, Debbie Hartsock, Covington City Council.
With Ethan.
Ethan Newton, Parks and Recreation Director with City of Covington.
Christina Soltis, Covington City Council.
Patricia Smith, Parks and Recreation Commissioner.
Jeff Wagner, Mayor Covington.
Laura Morrissey, Parks and Recreation Chair.
Beth Porter, City Council.
Joe Smolo, City Council.
Jennifer Harja-Helsen, City Council.
Sean Smith, Council.
Regan Boley, City Manager.
Krista Bates, City Clerk.
Okay. Thank you all. And with that, we have Parks and Recreation accomplishments and priorities. And I'm going to turn it over to Laura Morrissey, our Chair of Parks and Recreation. Welcome.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for being here.
Well, thank you guys for being here and taking an hour or a little less to do a dive into all things parks. I was telling Jeff, I'm sorry, we're a smaller group. We've got two commissioners who are called away for work travel at very unfortunate times, and one commissioner who's just not available on Tuesdays, period, because of kids' sports. We're down a commissioner, so we are small but mighty. But hopefully we can give you some information, answer questions, have any discussions of things that are on your mind related to parks. And as we were putting together this document to kind of serve as a guide for what we thought might be good things to talk about tonight, I kind of, in my mind, sort of phrased as like past, present, and future. There's things that Parks has accomplished in the past, the not so, like the recent past too. Oh, come on in, Jeff. And then we've got things that are happening now and then things that we'd like to see in the future. So that's kind of the framework that we have for tonight. So a lot of these things I hope, maybe assume that you are aware of, but I know that you kind of get the high surface level view. And so we want to take a few minutes and give you a little bit more information, let you ask questions as your citizen representatives, let you know the word on the street that we hear about these things. So one of the things that has happened recently and that you may be aware of is the implementation of resident-based policies for registration. And that's been ramping up slowly. It started at the Aquatic Center with swim lessons, and now it's expanding into recreation. And so there's a verification process that residents have to go through. Covington residents get priority registration. And then there's a different fee schedule for Covington residents. Basically, the theory is because Covington residents are already supporting Covington Parks and Recreation and facilities like the Aquatic Center with their taxes, that they will pay less to access and use these facilities and programs than non-residents who are not supporting these programs and places with their taxes. And also a big thing was, I'm sure you've heard before, but swim lessons fill up like that. And so if you are not on the phone at 10:30 in the morning or like on the computer grabbing your spots, then you're not getting one. So we kind of looked at all of this and the best way to handle it, manage it, give our Covington residents the access that they deserve, like I said, for supporting the programs that they have with their taxes. And so with staff input, we as the Commission, we're very excited to see this happen. And overall, after just some bumps, any new process always has bumps. It's been really popular. And so the word on the street that I hear is that people are happy they can, get their kids into swim lessons if they choose to do that, because they have a full 24 hours in advance to do that before anybody else who's a non-resident. And so access for Covington residents has greatly expanded. I'm not sure how Covington could have done a better job communicating the change, and that communication always is a challenge. I don't have a magic answer for that. It's been a challenge ever since I kind of remember starting to do this stuff with the city. But once people have gotten the information, gone through the verification process, then it's great and it's seamless for them. And so it's just kind of getting over that initial hump of getting yourself in the system. And then once through there, you're good. So, and then from the staff side, what I've heard is that there really haven't been a lot of like problems specifically related to this policy. It hasn't created a lot of headaches or snafus or anything like that. So overall, we feel like as a commission, this is a win. This is a win for the city. This is a win for the people that live in the city. And it kind of, I don't want to say solves a number of problems, but it gives Covington residents the access that residents of the city, I think, need and deserve. So, I mean, is there anything about that you guys had any questions about or wanted to ask? Yeah.
Is this across the board for all the programs?
We're getting there.
Okay.
And Ethan can probably speak to that a little bit better than I can.
We are moving across the board for the resident, non-resident fees. The priority registration is just for programs that are that in demand that it requires it. So we have a number of programs that just aren't that in demand. It doesn't make sense to do all the work to set it up that way. And then to take advantage of those resident priorities or resident fees, you have to get you have to be verified. So
And then those high demand programs, are they also, is it like because it's 24 hours?
right now it's just I think it's just the swimming lessons. There might be another program or two, but it's not athletics, which is probably our next largest popular program. But the lead time for registration is so early that if we waited 24 hours or even a couple weeks at the beginning, they're not filling up yet. That's not to say they don't fill up in the last couple of weeks, but there's plenty of time for people to register if they're on it. So.
Thanks. Is there still, has the wait list, the length of the wait list for aquatics swim lessons changed in any way, any measurable way?
So for Covington residents, everybody's able to get in. They don't fill up all the spots. So then when they open for non-residents, it's still a little bit of the same situation that they're all trying to get on at the same time and get those spots. I'm not sure exactly what our wait list situation is these days. I think at one point in time we stopped doing wait lists because it didn't really matter. We just didn't have enough pool space or instructors. It's different for athletics. I know we do create wait lists and we create teams out of those.
Okay, well, that's helpful to know that at least Covington residents that want that are able to get it and they're not having to wait getting in. So
Yeah,
that's nice.
they all get in. And then I think even for, the greater community, there's still a message that it's not just Covington residents filling up all the spots. There's still, I think, I don't know, 60% of spots or more are still available for non-residents. It's just our residents have had an opportunity to already enroll. So.
The catch is that, you just have to verify yourself as a resident before you go and register. And so that message has gone out. I've seen it out a lot of different ways, but it just takes a while for people to get used to a new system and for it to like filter down. So, but overall, it seems to be working pretty well. And then the second bullet point really connects to the first in a lot of ways, and that the programs just across the board are high demand. I mean, we talk about aquatics all the time, swimming lessons filling up super fast, but programs at the pool in general, beyond swimming lessons, are also full. And then athletics is full. Everything is full. So the couple of things, the pickleball tournament, I know that, Sean, you had spearheaded that really well, and it had a good turnout. Covington Days, Kids Fest, all of this stuff that we did in the summer. Very well attended, very high turnout. And then, of course, the aquatic center, we can just repeat that over and over and over about how it's near capacity. And looking at this, from kind of the Parks Commissioner perspective, as somebody who lives in the city, again, I think that this is just a sign that the city is working towards giving people what they need. And I especially think about it just looking at the world around us, the sort of precarious economic situation that we feel like we're in. Washington Post, I believe, just had an article about how expensive it is to have fun. People are cutting back on live entertainment. Well, what that tells me is that people are going to shift to things that are inexpensive or free. And that is going to be a lot of our community. Our parks are free. Our programs are low cost compared to other ones. And so I think we will see more of a demand as the economy is a little bit precarious until people kind of feel certain and as to what will happen in the future. So while these things are at capacity or like well attended now, my feeling is that they're going to be more well attended in the future. So, yeah, that was kind of what I had to say about that. And then the last thing, we have Founders Park. The phase 1 improvements are underway. Anytime we get a new park in the city, it's like pom-poms up, let's all cheer, because we know that in terms of park space, we are under supported for our city. There's just not enough park space to meet our goals in terms of the acreage that we would like to have available per resident. This is all detailed out in our pros plan. And so I was chatting, maybe it was with Regan, and mentioning like parks is getting a lot of land, like we've expanded our territory a little bit. But part of that is as a commission, looking at where Covington is. If we have the option to buy land that could become a park, we really want to take that seriously, because land in Covington is getting built out very, very quickly. And as soon as you put 40 houses on it, the odds of it becoming a park are pretty much non-existent. So as options for land have become available to us, we really consider those very carefully and very earnestly for that reason. So, I mean, Founders Park started with 3 parcels, and then we got those bonus 2 that added to it. And we kind of jumped on that or wanted to jump on that for that reason. Like land is going to be disappearing very quickly here. And so the improvements are great. They're just the first phase, but again, anything that we can do to open a space up, to get people moving through it, that's super important, because we're very aware of the septed and moving the nefarious elements out of the park, so that first the park doesn't get a reputation, because it's no good to start with that type of reputation. But also just to have people kind of moving through and feeling like, oh, we have access to this place as a Covington resident. It might not be everything we want first. I mean, the first phase is not the full build out that we would have all liked to see. But it does give people some access to it. And we're hoping, just with the name of Founders Park, that we can create ways for the Covington residents to kind of take ownership of that place. When we as the Parks Commission were looking at the list of names, there were a lot of names for that park where, oh, we should name it after so-and-so because they've done this for Covington. We should name it after so-and-so because they've done this. There were probably 15 to 20 of those types of entries, different names, all of them. And some of those names meant something to some people, but they meant not really anything to other people, depending on the length of time that you had been in Covington. And so as we considered all of this, we realized, you know, this is a park that's going to hopefully endure down to many generations. And so we want them to be able to have ownership of this too. So hopefully we can do some type of memorial is not the right word, but maybe engraved bricks or something like that, where people can submit or have this idea of, hey, I feel like this person has contributed to Covington. I want to sort of honor them in the park. And it would make sense for a founder of Covington. That has a very wide interpretation for us. So that was one of the reasons we went with that name. And so at the end of the first quarter of 2024, we should be able to walk in that park, which would be great. Yeah, any questions about anything that's happened recently before I move on? Okay, so things that are in front of us as the Parks Commission right now. A lot of it, it's interesting, 2 or 3 bullet points are Jenkins Creek, which might feel a little bit surprising, but the phase 1 improvements that are going on right now, you've probably seen some construction happening. Some of that has been the water district. I know there has been some bumps in the road with that project moving forward. And so the staff is working on it. But at the end of the day, when that project is done, we're going to get some parking and a nice entrance to that park, which I think will be great because it still shocks me the number of people who don't know that park even exists. My neighbor across the street didn't even know the park existed. So, and she lives 5 minutes from that park. So I think that will be great in terms of just publicity for the park, but that directly feeds into the next thing, which is what are we inviting the people into? If we invite them into Jenkins Creek Park, what are we inviting them into? The maintenance for Jenkins Creek, Connie, one of the other parks commissioners, describes it as hit and run. Like we come in, we clean it up, we're like, okay, it's good. And then just because there's so much to do in the city, not anything against the maintenance in the city, they have so much to do. It's hard to keep up with it all. So then things get a little bit out of control, and then things maybe get a lot out of control. And so then we come in and we hit it again, and the process kind of just continues for a while. And so that is something of concern for us as the commission. I go through that park quite a bit. Well, I did. I would run through that park in the morning until I ran through that. I was in the park and a homeless man jumped out from under the bridge and started yelling and screaming at me. And I have not been back in that park since. So part of the challenge with that park, especially in the growing season, is it's very, very easy for it to get overgrown. So then you have no sightlines. And then immediately people moving through there feel insecure, feel unsafe. We have a master plan for Jenkins Creek that we finished. I want to say it was just a few years ago, but I think it's longer than that. Was it before COVID?
Yeah, I think it was like
Oh
2018.
my gosh, yeah. So one of the big things that master plan does was it opens up sightlines, and just opening up sightlines will help that park a lot. But in the meantime, just trying to keep it maintained is something that as the commission, we have concerns about. I know that what I hear from people is like, oh, I don't feel comfortable in that park. That park is scary. There's homeless people in that park. I don't let my kids go in that park. It's a lot of negativity about Jenkins Creek. I don't have a miracle cure, except, well, I do, actually, it's the master plan. That would be the miracle cure, but I know that there's always dollar signs attached to that, and I don't have a miracle cure for those, unfortunately, so. And then with the phase 1 improvements, you know, as well, kind of like I just said, I want to consider what are we inviting the people into? And so if we have this parking lot, this nice entry, and people walk in there and they get in there and they're like, ew, I don't like this. That's perhaps a lost opportunity. So, yeah, any thoughts, questions? Yeah.
Question for Regan. So I thought we added 2 maintenance folks to our team to address the issues. And I would think with that much of an increase, we would see more of an improvement in Jenkins Creek.
So Ethan could probably speak to this too. I'll mention a little bit about that. A lot of what was happening at Jenkins Creek Park was volunteer work.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
the additional staff came before that ended. But do you want to address that a little bit too?
Yeah, we converted some seasonal staff that we weren't able to year after year fill those positions. I think there might have been like 2 seasonal positions, and those were converted into an additional 1 full-time person, giving us a total of 3. So we went from 2 full-time to 3 full-time. And that's, I think, one, they've been busy kind of catching up on things that didn't get done during the pandemic. So there was a period of months where no park maintenance was being done citywide. And then, so they've been playing catch up on some things there. Like Regan mentioned, there was a volunteer, George, that was doing a lot of the maintenance at the park at a higher level of service than we're able to provide even with our 3 full-time staff. So they go in maybe monthly or quarterly and cut things way back, but then they're not going there. I think George was probably going there every week or 2, cutting things back. So.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we heard from George that he felt he had to do that because our maintenance team was unable or not doing the level of service that they should. And we've been
Sure.
hearing this now years, right? I feel
Yeah.
like since I've been on council, Parks and Rec and residents point out to us that this park is an issue. And with the investment, as Laura is eloquently pointing out, we're telling people it's here, come on in. We need to do something about it and not just keep listening to the same
Sure.
thing over and over again. Also, obviously, if we're doing a better job of maintaining it, just having public works and maintenance in there, keeping it clean, keeping that septet principle, which we tout that we support, would also mitigate some of what we're seeing. Ignoring it means more people are just gonna keep coming in, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're ignoring it. I would say that it's probably, it doesn't raise to the same service level as like CCP does, right? And so that gets a ton of attention and takes a ton of time. And I wouldn't, you mentioned that George said he had to do it because our guys wouldn't. Well, that's not true either. The issue is all time allocation. And if we want to take time away from cleaning the shelters at CCP or field work, we could devote it more to Jenkins Creek. That just hasn't been the.
I guess we don't hear that from staff, right? So if the maintenance team truly doesn't have the ability to maintain our parks, in my opinion, that should be coming to council from staff, not just our commission. I would appreciate that, and I guess I make that request to you.
Sure.
So, and that you're giving us solutions and
Yeah.
asking us for support.
So that was an item that I think was brought to city council. It may have been a number of years ago at this point, different. Because I think it was Ross maybe that did it. so
The
that's
service
probably-
levels that we put together with council, and we have brought it to council on a couple of occasions, but it has been a year or two since it was last discussed.
Because you're right, it is really just a correlation of allocating resources and then you get a level of service.
Yeah, I mean, I would appreciate council essentially us vouching, saying, yeah, we accept this level of service because it's something we hear so often. And we don't want people not feeling safe. in our parks.
Absolutely, we could redo that. Obviously, Jenkins Creek, because of the limited use that it gets, and it's a passive use park. Council decided not to devote the resources to it that we do to CCP, which makes sense. But if we have additional resources to put in there and the council wants that done.
Yeah, and I mean, when you say that, I don't remember someone saying, council, do you guys want more at CCP or less at Jenkins Creek? Does anyone in council recall that question?
We've done that
Yeah,
multiple times.
we've done it multiple times. We can pull it back if you want.
I don't.
It may
remember
not, I don't.
Saying
know.
less. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're fine.
We didn't say less, we said what level of service we wanted each of the parks, and we wanted more at CCP and not as much at Jenkins.
Okay. I don't remember that, but the consensus says yes, I believe.
Well, and maybe it's a good summit topic where we can
Mhm.
resurrect that and.
And it might have been a 2019 summit. I know I was there with Richard Hart and it was right after he retired that we were there. And I think that's when that all came
That could've
out and it
been
might have been
last
before
time.
some of
Yeah,
those.
it was a while ago.
Definitely think it was
It was
longer
fine.
than we think.
Well, I mean, I was just going to suggest that a part of the safety factor is the usage factor. And it is a passive park, which, you know, the long range vision is that it may become more active and we might be able to host events and hold things there. And I mean, obviously CCP raises money. I mean, it helps offset the costs because of all the programming. Is there a possibility maybe sooner than later? I don't know what that would look like. Can we have some events there so we get more traffic so that it does start to hold that place for, I don't know. I mean, thinking about how we're using it differently before the phase 4, all 4 phases are done there. I mean, we're gonna probably get lighting in there as well, so that'll help a little bit with some of that, but maybe that's where the cleanup projects are now. I mean, I know we do a lot at CCP, but it gets more staff attention, so maybe more service projects to clean up there. I don't know. Spitballing.
I mean, I just want to reiterate that we fully support parks maintenance as the commission. They are doing an amazing job. They are 3 people. So, and it's just and one thing that Jesse did say, when I come and give my report in front of you guys at your actual meeting, I have 3 meetings back to report on. But Jesse did come to us and give us some overview of parks maintenance. And one thing he said that did surprise me, Ethan alluded to it, they're still catching up from COVID. Because all of COVID happened during the growing season. So there's stuff that grew that is now entrenched that they are working on like getting out. And I had no idea. I would never have guessed in 2023, they'd still be catching up in 2020.
Thank you. So I'm gonna piggyback on that. If we're consistently having the same issues, same shrub, I don't have a green thumb, you guys, so take this with a filter. Can we or can we not permanently remove some of the same shrubs and keep regrowing? I'll burn it down, but
Yeah.
no, but
They'll come back.
I believe
Yeah.
that too. I know the weeds do come back,
Right.
but if we're talking about like severe overgrowth, that's like some big bush, some
Yeah,
big.
Well,
Let me-
and I don't know if I could just talk about Jenkins Creek real quick. It's meant to be that kind of
Yeah,
open
so
space,
but
right?
there's that like.
And there's just a
ground.
trail through it, and the trail is always cut back and kept, so I don't know for sure what sightlines Laura was referring to, but the biggest issue we've had in there are homeless using the bridge as their residence.
yeah.
And that became a hazmat matter, and we had to have that cleared out. And so that's obviously a big issue. I don't know about the sightlines, but I know the crew keeps the trail trimmed. If you're off in the bushes, then obviously that's gonna be a different matter, but.
Yeah, cause I mean,
Yeah.
as a.
Now George did some extra that he would create trails through the blackberries and stuff that I don't think we've maintained all of those,
Okay. well,
right? But the main trails that we put in the park are being maintained.
Cause to me, it's like, you see developers come in.
Right.
Okay, and if we're consistently having these issues with a certain location or a certain shrub or a certain destination like that. That might be the.
Well, let me tell you what I know about the park, and Ethan, you can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. One of when you look at the master plan for the park, one of the features of the park is it has this camas meadow. And so we want to not destroy that.
Yeah.
Because they're very rare, they're very unusual. If I remember correctly, it's one of a few that are left in this area, the original Jenkins Prairie type and stuff. So we have that. That kind of plays into programming. We don't want people like walking all over it. And in fact, if you look at the master plan, that area has a boardwalk to kind of keep people off of it. In terms of the sight lines, so what the trail itself is clear, but there's a lot of shrubbery, especially if you are coming into the park from the roundabout area. And so on your left side, there's a large swath of the park that George had mowed trails through. And now, yes, those are not being maintained to the level that George maintained them. And there's a lot of shrubbery and stuff that has grown up. So there's this feeling that somebody could come out of there. And there have been nefarious elements back. There's a kind of a swath of trees in the back corner and they've been hanging out there. And I do believe that they have been cleaned out multiple times and that Covington police is aware and on top of it. And then I got a visit from the guy under the bridge. And so he's now gone too, as far as I understand, but just, it's amazing. It only takes once, right? And then you feel like I'm walking proof, like I won't go back in there. And I've been running through there for 7 years and it just took once. One thing, like if we can get the master plan, built at some point, that does a great job of balancing the passive use of the park with the active use of the park. So it pulls in a playground so that we have active use, but then we have clear cut trails. One of the other sightline issues is that we have 2 levels to that park. So we've got this upper area and then a whole bunch of trees and then this lower area, and neither are really visible. And the upper area itself with that kind of loop trail, which is actually really great, but that in itself, there are places where you are totally isolated in that loop. Like there's a lot of trees or bushes growing in the center, you can't see across. And so just that the vegetation is great, but the sight lines are not. And so that park is a park that needs kind of a balanced and a controlled hand with it. Yeah.
I think with George, probably not. We have to maybe step into the next season and ask some different questions and maybe make some different plans.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, well, George got this up and it's like, well, now we need to
Right.
a permanent plan.
Yes, and I mean, this is
And I
like,
know the phase.
yeah, and I know like,
But
yeah,
this-
and you guys have to make these choices. I'm kind of glad I don't, because you have all the dollar signs and have to decide, okay, here's our pie. How big do the pieces go to each place? And I have mad respect for that, and I'm kind of glad I don't have to make those decisions. Yes.
So one of the things that the Park Commission has been talking about is having trails or paths to link the parks. And if we did that, you know, more people would go, oh, let's go down this trail. And then they're in a different park and they're going, oh, it's just beautiful. We have parks throughout the city. And, you know, it's one way to get more people out there is to connect.
That's very true. Did I kind of answer everything in my little diatribe? I will say, Beth, with programming, one of the challenges with Jenkins Creek is not just kind of the terrain, but the fact that we have houses backed up against the top side. And so, you know, we're aware like that's a neighborhood. That upper meadow would be ideal for programming, but there's backyards like right there. And these people probably don't want parties happening in the park, basically in their backyard all night. So just, it's a unique, some unique challenges to that one, but a lot of potential. So. Yeah. Any other before we step away a little bit?
Jeff's favorite item on there.
Yeah, this is where I will turn it over to Jeff, but I will just kind of phrase this with, we've had a lot of conversations about dog parks. And those conversations have kind of meandered and then sort of landed at this idea of, well, what if we do a temporary dog park? What are the pros and cons of that? But Jeff, I will let you, whatever you want to say about dog parks. This is your time. This is your stage.
Nope, thumbs up. Just kidding. Go ahead.
Anybody have any suggestions on a dog park? It's kind of like fairly high, people would like one. Council, any ideas?
Well, maybe I can frame this a little bit. Locating a dog park is tricky. You need to have enough space. You need to be aware of the surroundings. Like most people don't want to live next door to a dog park. Again, we need to consider maintenance. After just talking about Jenkins Creek, like dog parks do require maintenance. And so finding that space within the city, haven't had a lot of luck so far. We've got some ideas, but that's kind of where it is. So, yeah.
So I understand the city center plot, you know, there will be something there at some point. But in the meantime, can we put up a temp fence up just because at least,
Pop-up dog park.
at least the pups will be able to run? I mean, and then well, okay, you see where I was going.
Yep. And we went there ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean.
So a couple questions.
Okay.
What would that temporary pop-up dog park look like? And what have other communities done that? And then two, we've had conversations about a dog park too, and then so we're definitely looking as well. And I guess I wonder, has the Parks Department done like a GIS analysis, putting all of these characteristics in, like not being next to people's backyards and, you know, critical habitat and big enough? And are there any plots in Covington that maybe they're not even available yet, but
Sure.
where would we put it?
Going back in the Wayback Machine during the 2018 Jenkins Creek Park Master Planning project, there was a contingent of people that wanted a dog park. We actually partnered with like a UW GIS class, and they did study it. And I'll say they didn't really come back with many results. There was like a result over in the industrial section zoning area. And I think everything else, and they were looking for, I think, a larger property. But everything else was kind of outside the city limits. I do think it's probably, you know, I think if there's interest from council to kind of explore this, then staff could kind of be tasked with this. We could kind of work with our current GIS staff on identifying some things. I know was just talking with our stormwater manager recently, and he was at our last Parks Commission meeting, and he was just like, I need to talk to you about where we're gonna put this thing, because I think he has water quality concerns and things. But there's definitely you know, a portion of the community that would really like to see a dog park, that's for sure. I think there's pros and cons about temporary and pop-up dog parks, and I think any decisions on that, you just want to go to those with your eyes wide open, because once you put one somewhere, it could be a challenge to take it away. So.
Jeff.
You were asking what communities do it?
Yeah, what's that?
Redmond does it. And they got Marymore Dog Park there, but the city of Redmond actually puts up pop-up dog parks.
Okay, Jeff.
The only thing I was gonna say is, I'm not against the dog park, we just have to make sure we have extra maintenance people to maintain it, because I've visited the dog park once and nobody picks up after the dogs, it seems. So it's, that would be the thing, I'm sure that was rare, but that's the main thing, is having that extra help.
Yeah.
There is a big dog park up in west side of Kent called Grandview. It's 27 acres. And it's pretty much self-supported by the local people. The people that use it, they have work parties. It's got an upper level, it's got a lower level. It's an enormous sand pit that's about as big as a soccer pitch. Wow. And dogs just have a heyday. They got a little area off to the side for small dogs. They also have an agility course set up.
Yeah,
It's
Sean.
not as noisy as
Yeah.
people think.
Sean.
So I think, you know, there is definitely consensus on the council for finding and eventually having a dog park in Covington. Pretty sure that the council wants that. Finding the right place, I think is important. I think, you know, eventually when we do, having those things like the friends of whatever we call our dog park, you know, people can be responsible or expected to help support some of the maintenance would be outstanding. So those are things that I think we can look at down the road to make this easier. Yeah, I think that GIS analysis of where, given, you know, certain size, you know, distance from residential, water quality issues, critical habitat, it'd be great to at least know where there's some possibilities. So when property comes available, we can start thinking about, do we acquire that? You know, is it within our budget to purchase that? So.
Well, and can we approach people about buying the property if we see big open pieces?
Yes.
Right on.
We know there's a piece for sale just north of Gat's Middle School.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that's true, there is. That's, yeah, that would, although I don't. yeah,
I
may
love
not-
that
I don't have to-
thinking.
Right, oh, wait.
You know, the school would love a dog park, I can tell you right now.
Yeah.
That's
The school would love a dog park.
Given the
So that's
alternatives.
okay, yeah, we can still use it.
We can buy it and put it in, it's fine.
Oh, I don't know. Is it actually for sale?
They have,
They have it,
It was
yeah,
contingent on
but if they can't build that.
there's a big property on the west end of town, so that they're considering selling.
Oh, the one next
This
to.
guy.
Oh.
So,
Across from Sue's Creek.
okay,
I thought that would be a great place for dog park.
yeah.
No, across the street from Sue's Creek.
Yeah.
But until we get a property, coming back to the temporary thing, we kind of landed at the same place that some, Ethan and a couple of you have alluded to, like. A temporary dog park in the downtown area would be great, but then what happens if we take it away?
Yeah.
And so, as the commission, we kind of had the feeling that once you establish a dog park, be it permanent or temporary, you have established a permanent dog park. Whether the dog park shifts locations
Yeah,
is something different, but once you establish a dog park, you've established a dog park.
yeah, and I think that's what we would understand too, is
Mhm.
that once we set that precedent. You know,
You'd have to.
we can't
you'd have
close
to
that
somewhere
door.
to move it to.
Exactly,
There's,
before you start building in the downtown
Yeah.
area, so, yeah, just something to consider as a piece that puzzle. So, Jeff, did you want to add anything? Pretty please. Yeah, okay.
I mean, I think that's helpful, though, just hearing that the council wants to explore this
Yeah.
more. I think staff can work with the commission on some of this to bring back to council temporary and permanent options.
Yeah, because I mean, I keep thinking back to that city parcel, right? There's already a play structure there and it's already being used as a pseudo park by
Yeah.
kids across the street. So
Yeah.
obviously, when things change, if we have to move that around, like, so getting people to think, you hate to see a piece of property not being used at
Yeah.
all, right? Like, it's a resource and it belongs to the people. So if there's a way, but we still need to be looking like, we know it would not permanently be there. You have to look for the backup plans, so things can shift at some point. I mean, what if it's 4 or 5 years before anything's built on it? I mean, we don't know, right? So,
I hope not, but.
well,
yeah. I know, I hear.
there's a lot going on there with that, right? So-
Yeah, for sure. Well, if you flip to the back of your page, you could see what we would like to do with that property. So, the future, this is what we would love to see. Like, there's a lot of things parks related. I mean, like, if somebody wins that Powerball lottery of $1 billion, like, you could do a lot of good and you could probably spend it all on parks in this city. But if we were looking at our top 3, that's right in front of you right here. So, of the Aquatic Recreation Center, we would love to see this happen in the city. As a commission, we are all for it. Whatever help or assistance we can give to help move this forward, we are in favor of it. We feel like this is something that the community needs, so.
We should win the Powerball, so we're trying to figure out if we could buy Powerball tickets and win for the.
I was volunteering to be the person that
Right.
holds on to them.
Nice.
I get mixed up with my Powerball tickets.
Yeah, yeah, that one was mine.
Well, when you win, you can buy this, so, yeah. I know that there are, and I've seen it in the survey on the city Facebook page, kind of part of the city that's like, yes, we're all for this, and part of the city, like, that's gonna cost a lot more money that we don't have. I think that if we can get something like this built, this will be the thing that all the people in Covington didn't realize they needed.
Yeah.
Until they have it. So we talked a little bit about this with, oh man, when the consultant came, and I don't remember when that was, sometime earlier this year.
August.
Oh, no, it was August. Anyway, sometime earlier this year, just about this, looking at it, kind of their ideas that they had for it. But one thing that we are looking through the lens, commission wise, we're looking through the lens of how can this facility benefit everybody in the community, whether you pay to enter it or not, because we want everybody in Covington, whether they wanted it built, whether they were gung-ho, whether they were hesitant, we want them to feel like this is their facility that they have at least some access to, just for being a member of the Covington community. So, and yeah, if we won the Powerball, like that's what we buy right here. So, but again, there's all sorts of dollar signs attached to this, and that's really tricky right now. We fully understand that.
But you'll love the plan after we talk about it a little bit more.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So, the really quick observation, we have an aquatic, a center where people can go swim. And it's small, it's old. It needs a lot of work. If we were to go in there and, fix it, make it bigger, it still wouldn't be big enough. Its footprint just doesn't support what the community needs. So the other thing is if we were to use that particular footprint, we would be out a swimming pool for, a year, 2 years, 3 years. Well, all of it is done, which would negate the great positive flow that we're getting from the aquatic center. It's, as a small city, we are the training site for all of these other cities to get their lifeguards certified to the next level. And if we don't keep doing that, some other city's going to pop up and say, oh, we're going to do this because we get revenues from doing the training. So we really don't want to miss out on being the bright star for all of the training for the local region. So right now there's 2 more surveys that need to be done, and each time we do a survey, something shakes loose. And so we're starting to get a really good idea of what the community wants. And the community is saying, yeah, we need something more than just the swimming pool. And when we start looking at, oh, you know, can we have this event in there? Can we have this sport in there? Can we do this? It's like, yeah, let's do it. Now, the backside of the whole thing is, we know from the pros planning that, you know, we're expecting the city to keep growing. And if we build, you know, a really nice place, but we haven't accounted for the incoming population, it's already too small. So this is going to be one of those deals where when we sit down to talk about it, there's got to be a lot of soul searching. Do we plan for being the best for the future or not? And I think we have an opportunity to step up there, and it will cost a lot of money.
I was just going to suggest one of the things that we had talked about is potentially making it literally like the town center with, if we do move City Hall there and all that, right? So the money that we are spending on rent, you know, that money could be used to help pay, well, from the annual cost perspective, some of that will transfer so that it will help pay to maintain that building. Obviously we have to do that financial analysis on it, but.
Yeah, in the plans,
Yeah.
you know, part of the plan is City Hall's going to be, you know, right next door to the big city recreation center. And get a lot of use. But then the other thing is that, you know, if we take the time to expand sidewalks and trails, you can go from one park to another park, and then you end up at the basketball court or badminton inside or swimming. You know, folks in the city will be going, what took us so long?
Yeah.
You know, what took us so long?
Adjacent to the whole, well, no, connected to the community center, interestingly, the word on the street and that I have heard consistently about these plans, not this specifically, but even going back to the joint session with Maple Valley, the thing that people seem to be most excited about, in addition to a pool, was an indoor walking track. And even last week, my 17-year-old daughter took, last week, 2 weeks ago, whenever the second survey right before it closed, my 17-year-old daughter took it and she said, Mom, they should definitely do the 1-story option because it has a really cool track, just out of the blue. And that was a consistent message that I heard for anything. So there's something about safe, indoor, interesting walking spaces that is very appealing to people. So anyway, whatever we can do to help support the Aquatic Recreation Center, that we are all for it. Just in interest of time, I'm going to jump down to the Jenkins Creek Trail. Patricia alluded to just the trail connectivity. That is another thing that's very much on the forefront of our minds at the commission. And a trail, you know, true trail, that's kind of under Parks purview. But when we think about it, Patricia said sidewalks, like really, we want to see people able to get around by foot or on bike wheels or something like that. We want connectivity in between the city. And so if it's a trail, great. If it's a sidewalk, fine, so be it. Like as long as a pedestrian can safely move around through this city. And you guys have done a great job with the new stuff that's going in and the codes that exist in the city requiring big sidewalks, requiring walkability. It's kind of catch up with the older things. But whatever we can do to create those walkable connections, it's very important to the commission. And that's something that's kind of in front of us right now. So this Jenkins Creek Trail would go from Jenkins Creek Park down under Kent Kangley, and that underpass is already there, and then eventually connect in with Founders Park. So this first phase would go from Jenkins Creek Park to Kent Kangley, I believe, correct? Or does it go beyond? Or not to Kent Kangley?
As long as we can get all the funding for it.
Okay, yeah,
We're still working on the construction portion.
yeah.
That's
So,
the vision.
yes, so that is something that's an active thing that we have that we hope will happen sooner rather than later. And the last point, again, we've kind of alluded to this with Jenkins Creek Park, but really, you know, parks maintenance in general, it seems it's a constant catch up, not due to any deficiency in Covington maintenance, just due to the sheer amount of work for the number of people available. And so every year, you know, Jesse comes in and we're like, so Jesse, ideally, how many people do you need? And it's more than he has. But they're doing a great job with what they can. I know that they are accessing some grants. In fact, I think Jesse said they were looking at a grant to like have some people go in and kind of weed whack Jenkins Creek Park, like knock it all down so that they could then stay on top of the maintenance. So I think that was kind of in the hopper. He was looking at it at least because that park is a challenge. And then, you know, connected to that, like you mentioned with a potential dog park, there needs to be maintenance. And so our park system is growing, which is a great thing. I think it's going to continue to grow. I think, like I said, economically, I think people are going to continue to use our system, use our parks, use our resources, but that does create some pressure points for us as a city because the more people in and out, the more maintenance, the more staff. And so it's a great problem to have, but it also does present its own challenges. Yeah, so that's what is on our mind as a commission. That's what we wanted to bring to you. And so any questions to finish us off? Well, I really appreciate you listening to me a lot. And so Jeff and Patricia sharing their insights. And if we had an ask for the summit, it would be to look at Jenkins Creek Park, you know, like you identified. And then a second one would be anything related to a dog park. So, but whatever we can do to clean up Jenkins Creek Park and maybe take another step forward with identifying a spot for a dog park or what the council wants staff to do for a dog park would be great. Just knowing that those are priorities within Covington City residents. So things that have been going on for a while.
Well, thank you,
Yes.
Laura, and Patricia and Jeff for being here. And thank you to everybody else on the Parks Commission. Really appreciate the updates you brought and thank you for all the good work that you all do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, this meeting is adjourned.
All right.
Thank you. for
Thank
the
you.
presentation.